Today, I want to talk about the importance of finding community when pursuing your lifestyle design dreams. Whether it is for learning a new skill, you know, taking on a new hobby, or you have certain interests, career pivoting, traveling, or even living abroad. These are all just examples that having a community of people to be able to talk to and turn to for support is the ultimate lifestyle design hack. And I just wanted to talk about that a bit today, especially being a Black woman. So, as Black women, we are pretty much conditioned to expect to have to figure everything out on our own. That's just how it is, whether we actually have the support or not. I think a lot of the times a lot of pressure is put on our shoulders to not only support, everyone else around us, but also have to figure things out for ourselves. And I don't know if you can chalk that up to societal norms, or if it's if it goes even deeper than that. But in my experience, always having to figure things out on your own, even though you're more than capable of doing it, and you have done it numerous times, there are just times when you just wish that you just didn't have to do everything. Like, you just wish that there was somebody, or some sort of support around where that could help, take some of, the burden off of your shoulders when dealing with something. And I don't want this video to be like a Debbie Downer video. I'm just speaking from a, perspective of just always having to do stuff on your own, whether it's, it doesn't have to be, in a negative way. It could be anything, whether it's, like I said before, maybe trying to learn a new skill, or navigating a career pivot, or anything like that. It doesn't necessarily have to be anything negative. Just always just having to do stuff, just figure stuff out, and do it on your own, and you're most likely getting it done. You're most likely getting it done. But one thing I can say is that always having to do things solo dolo, it definitely increases the chances of you experiencing undue stress, overwhelm, and even possibly, burnout. And so I just think it's like super important that in whatever you endeavor in whatever you endeavor in, and whatever you're pursuing, finding your tribe is like one of the best things that you can do. And I think there's three main reasons why. I kind of alluded to the first reason before, which is just for like support, like emotional support, moral support, motivation. When you find your tribe, you find community associated with, whatever your interest is. I'll just say your interest, because an interest it can go anywhere from career to, leisure or hobbies, right? So I'll just say interest from this point forward. So whatever your interest is, finding, a group, whether it's a big group or a small group of like-minded people, is just like a game changer, because not only, will you have, different people, different experiences, but you also may find people who have had similar or the same experiences as you, so they're able to be more empathetic to your situation, or, they may have, resources, or just be there for, just any type of support, moral support, emotional support, and like that, like I said, that motivation. And when you have that, that right there alone is just one of those burden lifters. Like you just kind of get a bit of relief to kind of know that, there are other people around that know what I'm talking about. You know what I mean? Regardless, no matter what it is that, whatever your situation may be. And like I said, this isn't, I don't want it to be sound like it's on a negative note. I'm just, speaking in general. It could be, very positive things, just things that it just would be cool if you had some other people around, that you were in community with to kind of just help, lighten the load, just it's just that feeling like when you find your group of people, like no matter what it is, like you're just like, yeah, like I'm not by myself. And that just right there just goes a long way, regardless of if you get into one-on-ones or have deep conversations or not. Like just knowing that you're not the only person, sometimes that alone just goes a long way in keeping you motivated and focused on whatever it is that you're interested in doing. So that's like the biggest thing is just having like a support there, and insert whatever, whether it's emotional support or whatever. That's one of the biggest reasons I think, finding community in your lifestyle design pursuit is key. Second reason is I would say like for accountability, and I like that. I guess that just really just depends on if you need that kind of motivation or push to stay focused on whatever it is. So like especially if it's something when it comes to like or I'm sorry, like career pivoting or like learning a new skill. So for me, like my career is in tech, and so if you work in tech, or if you know anybody that works in tech, you know that a lot of career progression surrounds like maintaining certifications or pursuing different types of certifications just to stay marketable, just to stay up on the latest, technology or, whatever. Like, and so, like, for instance, I'm just using this as an example, having like an accountability partner, like, say, you find like maybe a study partner or a study group or something, for a cert or whatever, having people around to kind of keep you focused on, okay, make sure you get this done, like give your goal. You can tell them what your goal is, and then you can have somebody there making sure that you're continuously working towards your goal. So I think that's important too, because I think a lot of times, especially when it comes to us doing things on our own and not really having anyone holding us accountable, even though we might be working towards it, I think like sometimes we'll kind of take our time with it, which is there's nothing wrong with, but it could, prolong whatever the process is. And, when you have somebody there kind of holding you accountable, it may help you work towards achieving whatever your goal is much quicker, you know what I mean? And minimizes the chances of you having a reason to like not pursue it, right? So just to keep you motivated. So I think that's also another really good reason why finding community in your pursuits is super important. And I think lastly, one of the biggest things is having access to information that you may not have had, access to on your own, or access to resources where you just have multiple people where you all can bounce ideas off of each other, or, point each other in, the right direction when it comes to finding out certain information. I think that's like the biggest thing right there. And even when it comes to like learning a new skill, having other people that may, know more about the whatever the thing is, whatever the new skill is, and being in community with them, boom, right there. You have someone that you can that can help you, pursue and reach your goals. They may have already kind of hit that milestone and they may be a little further ahead than you, and that's fine. but that's also like the best, people that you can learn from, is because they already know what it takes, and what to expect and things of that nature. So just having a group of people where you all can share your knowledge with each other, and resources, and just different information, share your experiences, that right there too is a game changer. Because again, a lot of times we don't know what we don't know when it comes to a lot of things, and just being in community, can enlighten us, and provide us insight, or we can also, provide insight to others on whatever, that interest is. And just ultimately, just being in community, us as humans in general, I think we need to be around people. And to me, it's like I don't want to say a double-edged sword, because I'm pretty much an introvert. Like, I'm to myself a lot, you know what I mean? And even though I love being social and things of that nature, and being in community in general, because I understand, like, number one, we don't always want to just be by ourselves and figuring stuff out all the time by ourselves, you know what I mean? So even though I am an introvert, I know that, I wouldn't be able to do anything if I didn't have like the help and support of people that I was in community with. So, and just being able to provide, any knowledge and insight I might have too. It's just one of those things, kind of goes back to like that, having the fulfillment, having, feeling like, you're helping someone too, or, just having that good feeling of that you have someone, or a group, or, a community, to lean on when you need it. I think those things are invaluable. And like I said, especially as Black women, with us being just used to having to figure things out on our own, I just wanted to, just remember that you don't have to always figure, out stuff alone. And you should actively, try to find community surrounding your interests, whatever it may be. And so that was just on my, on my mind today, and wanted to share, that, just that thought. And, it's just something that I wholeheartedly believe in. You definitely always want to find community surrounding, whatever it is you're interested in doing, just because it just makes the experience that much more better. You know what I mean? It makes it more enjoyable, and it's just nice to like meet people and get to know people, and things of that nature. I always like everything that I've, any, especially any extracurricular interests that I've ever had. Really, I've always tried to find the community, most of the time online. I've considered, like, I've had different apps like Meetup and stuff like that, where you can kind of go on there and see different types of events and things happening in your area and stuff. But I've never really hunkered down and like really kind of got into it. Like, I've checked them out, like apps like that before. I've kind of checked things out like that before. I never really got into it, but I always end up being able to find like an online community. And I guess that goes back into just us being in a digital age, and especially with me being a homebody, just getting online is just the most easiest, and, convenient thing we can do. But this kind of ties back into the video I did a couple of days ago about just a friendly reminder of getting back outside, a little bit more. But that's just kind of tying into that message. Just, going out and finding community is a good way to get out. It's a good way to get outside more. I don't know, that was just random. I just that thought was just, random in my mind. But yeah, I just wanted to share that with you all today. Just remembering that you don't have to do everything alone. You don't have to feel like, the world is on your shoulders, and you have to get it right, because even like I said, mentioning playing into the whole like undue stress and overwhelm, and you may handle these types of things. You might function pretty well under high stress. You may not be easily overwhelmed, but I think ultimately, I think over time, a lot of that stuff gets to us. I think in ways where we may not realize, that that's maybe the source. You know what I mean? With always having to, on top of already hustling and being in survival mode all the time, and just taking care of business on a regular daily basis. And then if you throw something else in the pot, you know what I mean, that you still have to kind of figure out on your own. I think a lot of that goes into us, especially people who are high performers. Like you feel like whatever it is that you endeavor in it, you're going to give it your all, you're going to give it your best, you know what I mean? And then when you throw something else in the mix that you can do, you have to figure it out on your own. I think all on excuse me, you have to figure it out on your own. I think all of that really plays into why we experience burnout. And I know I use the word burnout a lot, but there might be some people who don't even really resonate with that, term, and they might be experiencing it, but not even know that that's what it is. You know what I mean? And they, could just chalk it up to being exhausted. You know what I mean? Mentally, or you know what I mean? Just like other subtle signs that that they may not realize that that's ultimately what it is. You just burnt out, you're just tired, and stuff. And I think just always having to figure things out on our own is one of the biggest contributing factors. And this is just my opinion, you know what I mean? So I'm not a, licensed professional or anything. I'm just some random person on the internet, just sharing my thoughts about these things. And honestly, just speaking from my own experience, and just knowing, like, just always kind of going through being in support, always kind of being a support system, and I mean, that's just what we do. We just support everyone else, and not always just have to support ourselves. And I think just in general, Black women, just that's just what we know. It's just what we know. You know what I mean? Just being there, having been there with just figuring things out, on top of everything else, that that you're responsible for. It wears you down over time. When you're young and stuff, probably may not affect you, but as you get older, and that's one thing that I'm definitely definitely realizing, that the picture gets clearer and clearer, I think, with each year that passes. It's like when you hit 40, like the whole world just starts to look very different. I think, even if you're still going through your everyday, day to day, you know what I mean? Like, I think something about hitting that 40-year mark, you just really start to, like, I don't know if it's like we slow down and we're really starting to pay attention to like what we're doing, or like you're starting to really pay attention to other people, and you just, I don't know, it's just like you just have a clearer view of, life, and your life and what's going on. You just really start to, like, wake up, I guess, and just kind of really start paying attention to everything that's going on. And, you know, you realize, okay, I think so, like, especially when it comes to, like, with this topic, as far as having to figure things out on your own, even though you might still do it, you might still just be used to doing it. I think you just are just way more aware, and I think also too, you may be more prone to seek out, the support that are looking for and need. And that's just what, especially when it comes to, like, really big decisions and things of that nature. So yeah, find your tribe. The moral of the story is find your tribe. It just ultimately, I just think it's better. It makes things easier. It helps relieve, you know, stress. It lifts the weight off your shoulders. It relieves a burden from you to just having to try to figure things out. And like I said, it's just always wonderful to be in community with like-minded individuals. So let me know in the comments. Have you recently tried to seek out a community for interests that you may currently be pursuing? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to have a chat about it. Thank you so much for watching my video, and I will see you in the next one. Take care.